All right, everybody, welcome back. This is The End of the World with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stu. And today we are talking about a wonderful film, or is it so wonderful?
Mm-hmm.
Triangle of Sadness.
Mm-hmm.
A scene-dividing black comedy from 2022 that I think is it's quite well made, but we'll get into the film itself and some of the possible problems with it in a little bit. But we would be remiss to not discuss the, quite frankly, horrible event of the last week, namely the assassination of right-wing influencer Charlie Kirk, which I was online on Wednesday afternoon. I had actually just gotten back from the comic shop, my Wednesday routine, when I discovered a video that was quite troubling, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
And what has followed in the we're recording this on Monday afternoon, but what has followed in the 5 days since then has been one of the more remarkable periods of, for lack of a better word, madness on social media that I've ever witnessed.
Absolutely. It's like almost as though, you compare this to other. I remember one of the first. It was obviously very different, but one of the first really communal feeling events of this type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel was like in a sense is the Boston Marathon bombing.
Yes.
Sort of following along the chase.
Yeah, good call.
And like the people were on police scanners and like putting out information online.
And there was a mistake was made where a suspect who had absolutely nothing to do with it was identified. Yeah, Sunil Tripathi, who was a student at Brown, who he'd been missing because he'd committed suicide and his body had not been discovered. But because he had vaguely resembled one of the shots of Dzhokhar Tsarnaev from the bombing site, his name was dragged through the mud, and everyone was like, this was the guy, he did it, had nothing to do with it. And a friend of mine actually knew him from Brown and was extremely upset about the whole thing, and rightly so. With this, immediately, there was a desire to blame the shooting on a trans person, which I found to be extremely strange.
Well, it's become it's because of the sort of like recency bias in a way, right? Where like they've been drilling that talking point for a minute now, right? That there's this cadre of people wanting mass shootings and stuff who are trans, right? This has become a weird talking point.
Feels like a moral panic, right? I mean,
absolutely. And it just, again, like, this is one of the greatest examples we have of confirmation bias, right? I mean, it is remarkable to see the various people of various persuasions and how they line up. Very quickly, we were obviously talking a lot while this was going on, and we'll talk about it in a minute, where you have a very substantial like anti-conspiratorial bent when it comes to things like this, that at first blush the most likely scenario is one person, probably very unwell, did something totally brutal and insane. But very quickly we got everything from ardent leftist, trans, Israel, Trump.
Israel did it. All right, it's a false flag. Trump
somehow ordered Epstein off the front pages. Very quickly, people were saying it's AI, and showing this gruesome video in like great detail of like signals of the security team behind and people handing objects off to, like we got the speed with which it happened sort of confirms the speed with which we consume things now,
Right.
right?
I mean, Grok was saying in the immediate aftermath, I don't know if it still is, that it was all a stunt and that Charlie Kirk was fine, which
Right.
was deranged. I
Yeah,
mean,
people, why would he get put in the back of a um,
why did they
regular?
wait for an ambulance? It's like, well, obviously there wasn't close enough,
Yeah.
I think, the chaos of a moment like that always leads to a lot of misinformation just
Mhm.
spilling out because it's unclear what happened. A lot of people saw one thing, some people saw, this is like why I always go back to the Kennedy assassination, right? Where people are like, well, 46 people said the bullet came from here. And it's like, yeah, like in the moment,
Hmm.
like, then later they found a gun in the book.
Even just like hearing a sound like that, you can turn and
It
think very
echoes.
confused.
You don't know
Yeah.
where it's coming from. I mean, even
Right.
when you're walking on the street and fireworks go off that
Mhm.
sound kind of like gunfire, you get startled. It's
Right.
never clear to me exactly where that's coming from,
Yeah.
right?
I think well, one of the things that we want to focus more on some of the aftermath stuff, and what's I think an interesting observation of this moment is the incredible speed with which we entered the aftermath, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like just the playing out of the narratives and the lines that were sort of taken within, it felt like minutes, right? Um, and again, let's not get into um I'm less interested in terms of like, look, everybody has their own thoughts on Charlie Kirk, and obviously they were expressed in a billion ways over the last 5 days and continue to be. But the things that I want to talk about, I think first are like the process of like confronting mediatization, right?
Mediatization, yeah.
And again, sort of instantly, this sort of like complete obfuscation of the present moment, like blotted out by everything that came before and after. And one of the things that we talked about was that obviously one of the big stories is a bunch of people sort of being gleeful, right? Happy, celebrating, all
Which,
of that stuff.
which, I'm not here to scold anyone, but I also don't ever think that's a wise thing to do publicly,
Well, it's
obviously.
yeah, and it's also like, is that taking a stand? Is that And again, we always talk about this, that like people in our society react in callous, brutal, horrific ways, often out of like an underlying sense of hopelessness.
Yeah.
That like
Well,
whatever,
people react to horrible things in a variety of ways. This is something that comes
right?
up in true crime all the time because people are like, "Oh, the husband like wasn't sad enough, so he must have done
Mhm.
it." It's like
Right,
there's
but
no way of
it's
knowing.
also like what's interesting to me is that like, and again, I'm not speaking to any particular group chats or whatever. I'm talking about the dynamic where the online life for people, right? Someone had a great tweet that was like, it's interesting to see regular people make like statements as though they're kind of like, whether it's enforcement or the head of a church or the head of state, right? Like, like making their feelings known. That's one thing. But like the glee and all of that, again, whatever you think about it, it's a process of like, what does it mean the way that people post through everything? And like, what I mean by group chats is like, you see a lot of comments that, like, not to be too glib, but like would more typically, or maybe a little further in the past, like would be in like a group chat or like
Sure.
a text to a friend that someone gets a bid off or whatever. But like putting this out there for public consumption, it's like, again, while also recognizing at the same time that like there's a chance that this gets really brutal for online expression, for doxing, for consequences,
For
for
people on the left in general.
exactly. And so it's like, okay, well, if it's both of those things, it's like, how violent would a reaction have to be to not do that? And like, what is the purpose of doing it? And like, again, I mean, I don't post anything. I don't have any inclination to
Neither do
be
I.
in any way. But
I post the podcast episodes, that's it.
right, right. And then the flip side of it, of course, is that he's being held up as you know for things in ways that I think obviously are unfair, as this sort of bastion of civil rights and discourse and good faith argumentation. I've never seen, honestly, like a good faith argument in any of the clips I've ever seen, really. Maybe I haven't seen enough. I don't know, but like I haven't. I mean, usually
Sure.
it's a 30, 31-year old man like kind of snarking it out with college kids.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
Um, but then you also see like databases being formed and crazy things of like, here's a list of every single person who said anything uh, crude or whatever about Charlie Kirk, and people are losing their jobs and stuff. And it's like, okay, well, sort of at one level, it's like, is that just like, are you trying to make a philosophical stance that there is a line beyond which freedom of expression is unacceptable? And if so, then like, what of all the expressions of people on the right for all the time that led up to this incident?
Sure. And I mean, there's also a very, in my opinion, specious analogy being made between violent actions and leftist ideology when, like, any time, any of the 150 times in the last 5 years, someone has done a mass shooting and posted a right wing laden screed about it, we're told, like, hey, no, that's not,
Right.
it's too soon. We can't make this about politics. And it's like, why is this the exact opposite? It's like, oh, well,
Right.
because obviously it's just opportunistic, right?
Right. Even like Trump is up there talking about like the hateful language, the demonization of others. It's like, guys, man, like that's his MO.
Yeah.
Like I don't,
Yeah.
I mean, that's his whole political game. So it's very difficult, to square these two things. And obviously it's easy to think it's like just transparent opportunism.
Which I think probably that's it, right? I mean, there's not, there's no real, right? I mean, it's just self-serving,
Yeah,
right?
but I guess the question I would ask you is like, we have had moments. Um, this obviously seems to have made a huge impact. I mean, heads of state are involved. The vice president did his podcast.
Yeah.
Like this is but like,
The Prime Minister of Canada, the Prime Minister of the UK, like everyone is
yeah,
chimed in on this.
and there is a lot of talk with all of these things always of like, okay, well, you know, is there actually any long-term political and social consequence, or does it just like do what so many other things have done of just sort of like flame out and get brought sort of subsumed by the next thing or what have you?
Sure.
Do you think this has sort of longer reaching
Well, there's
consequences?
certainly people on the right are pushing for it too, right? I mean, they're talking about centering the midterm elections around the Charlie Kirk incident, the assassination, which I don't know how effective that will be if the economy continues to spiral as it's clearly begun to. I mean,
Yeah.
it it feels like they're trying to do. And this is a comment, a lot of analogy that I think is kind of imperfect that a lot of people have made. Is the murder of Horst Wessel in 1930, I think it was, in Germany. Horst Wessel was like a. This is before the Nazis were in power, but he was like a member of the Nazi party, and he got into some kind of dispute over a girl. The whole thing's very muddied. He ended up getting killed, and I think it's possible that one of the people he was feuding with was Jewish, right? So this becomes a kind
Mhm.
of instantiation of the ideology, and the Nazis. The Horst Wessel Lied, like the Horst Wessel song, became like the informal party anthem, and
Yeah.
like they'd always invoke him as a martyr figure. There's been a lot of talk that something similar is in the works for the sort of MAGA constituency with the commemoration of Kirk. I don't think the analogy doesn't really work for me on a couple levels, but clearly something like that is afoot
Mhm.
where they're going to try and use this as an indictment of everyone on the left.
Yeah.
Um, and in a way that they hope will galvanize, on top of that, all the redistricting stuff and like trying to just gerrymander as many. They're just basically their worst case scenario seems to be the Democrats reclaim the House in 26, right? That's the thing that they're trying to avoid at all costs. And it's almost as if
Right. So things like the gerrymandering can be now get a bit more popular will and excused out of like the danger the left presents as
Right, exactly. Or
showing
even
that.
just in general, like don't vote for them. Which
Yeah.
is incredibly cynical, right?
Mhm.
Given what I, what we've talked about. It also feels like, there's the clip of Trump the day after the shooting at the Yankees game, like dancing to YMCA as he
Yeah.
always does. They're not doing a great job of
No, I mean he was
set.
asked holding up. It must be so tough. And
He was like, "Well, the ballroom's coming along great,
all
though."
them's coming along. And that's an interesting thing about like the sort of boomerang effect of Trump's style, where like if this did impact people on the right in the way it's being expressed, right?
Yeah,
I want to know what their reaction is to the dancing and to the ballroom thing as his response to how are you holding up, right? Like, does that have a negative impact maybe? Like, the, you would think that he would be making like a grand gesture, and obviously he does in his like truth socials and stuff, but as so often with Trump, like he can't stay on a tone or
on message. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a moment I think that at the very least is very frightening because ultimately a lot of people, ourselves included on the left, have long been like, how bad can this get? What kind of acceleration can these
yeah.
excesses of Trump and the right take on? And this certainly feels like it has the possibility to at least be galvanizing in some very, very troubling ways.
Yeah, and I mean, just to close out, like we've talked about assassinations a number of times before. My big thing about assassinations is they're never good. They never enact positive change, right? Like they never accomplish whatever misguided goal the shooter has. I mean, it's always horrible, and this just seems to be another entry in that long.
Right. Like, what's the last one where the general consensus emerging, no matter who did it, was like, time to open up space for a genuine left in America?
Certainly, never that's never happened. But like, I even when a right wing person does an assassination of, it never,
Yeah.
it's never good, right? I mean, there's never, you know. Anyway, speaking of right and left, we should move on to the movie, perhaps.
Yeah.
So, Triangle of Sadness. I did not see it until yesterday. Um,
I think I saw it in theaters, actually.
I'm kind of surprised that I didn't. Right? It seems like the kind of thing I would see. It's directed by Ruben Östlund, who had previously directed a movie called The Square, which I haven't seen, and then Force Majeure, which I did see, which I thought was
Which
quite.
I think we would do at some point, and I think it's a far more interesting movie
Yeah,
than
they actually is quite a bit better, right? It's sort of the psychological portrait that it paints of
yeah,
a moment of crisis, which I think is germane to the pod.
yeah.
So this movie is divided into three acts, like most movies, but in this case, they just they kind of signpost the acts for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Um, and
And I thought the beginning was great. It's my favorite part of the movie.
uh, so we see this young model, played by his name is Carl. He's played by Harris Dickinson, who is auditioning for some kind of role. Uh, the way that he's treated, it's the materiality of his body is kind of, like they do this thing where it's like, all right, pretend you're in a grumpy thing, then you're in a happy thing, and they're just kind of modulating.
And it's not alone, right?
He's with a whole group of guys, and
Right.
they're all
This
shirtless,
spurting of emotional expression, of totally vapid, inauthentic expression.
right? And we get the person who's directing the shoot or the audition say, "Can you relax your triangle of sadness?" Which is apparently the area between the eyes and above the nose, and it's sort of the little lines that indicate emotional. I mean, that makes sense.
Yep.
It's just kind of funny to have the title like hit you in the face like that. Uh
I always
then
think of that Family Guy bit where it cuts to Peter at the theaters whenever the title is said.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love that gag. Um, we see that whatever the shoot was, the models are all like in the next scene, like getting paint splattered on them in like this. Uh, feels super shallow and
Yeah, but I feel like it's purposefully so. I mean, I kind
no,
of
of course.
like I like the portrayal of the life before the boat a lot.
Yeah, you almost wish that it was just about their life and not this
Absolutely.
diversion. Is what you're saying. I get you. We then see him out on a date with his girlfriend, who is Yaya, who's played by the late Charles B. Dean. She
Yeah.
actually
She
died.
was I think she was fantastic in
Yeah, just definitely one of the best parts of the movie. And she died of some bizarre infection that she didn't
this.
have a spleen from an earlier operation, and it's very sad. She's a talented actress. In any case, they're at dinner, and it's obviously one of those places that's like $800, for like 3 glasses of wine and like two
Right.
entrees or whatever.
And like a piece of salmon that's
Yeah.
with like balsamic reduction smeared across the plate.
Yeah, exactly. And as the bill is coming, she's just like, "Thank you, honey," or "Thank you, dear," or whatever. And he's just like, "Oh, okay, so I'm paying." She's more successful, we learn in their dialogue that follows, and yet he, because of gender roles, is constantly expected to pay. Even though we later learn she also promised to pay the night before about the next. She's like, classic, like, "I've got the next one" situation. And then indeed, the next one arrived and she did not indeed have it. But in any case, this continues. Eventually, they have that classic relationship fight where it's like, "I'll do it." No, I'm going to do it, right? She puts down her card, but then her card is rejected, declined. And he ends up having to pay anyway. And then they have this incredibly tense Uber ride home where he kind of tries to broach the fact that talking about money is like
Unsexy.
well, she says it's unsexy, but he's like,
Right.
"Why is it so impossible?" And like she eventually like they have a fight. They have a fight in the elevator. She's like, "I'm paying for your hotel, blah 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 blah." They both storm off and then reunite later. And like she kind of admits that she intentionally didn't pay just because she could, right? And he says he loves her. She does not reply. And she sort of implies that their relationship is more about the views.
Like online curation.
Right. Like it's hot that she has a hot boyfriend and
Right.
she gets more engagement by posing with him than she would.
Right. So what better than to put these two on a vacation on a boat where they can't get off?
So let me cut to part 2, which is the yacht, where they are on wait for it, a yacht, a pretty large yacht, but it's like a private cruise situation where there are maybe 50 other passengers.
It's the
And
true upper crust. Right?
this is like, it's also ambiguous where they are, right? I mean, I think it was filmed in Greece, but it's not clear that they're in Greece or the Caribbean, or they could be. I think it's deliberate, right? They're in some ambiguous tropical paradise.
Sure.
The first thing we see on the yacht is the crew. So this is like the classic. There's a lot of social dynamics in this movie where
Heavy-handed.
it's very in your face. The first thing I thought of was, of course, the great upstairs downstairs movie of them all, which is Alien,
Yes.
which we somehow still haven't done on the pod. Got to get to Alien, right?
Do it next week.
Sure, let's do Alien next week. Why not? I love Alien. I'll do every Alien movie till the end of time, even the bad ones, and there are some bad ones. All right, next week Alien, but similar dynamic where there's the workers, and then there's in Alien we don't have the upper crust, but here the passengers are at this top of this pole, and it doesn't seem like Carl and Yaya are doing that great. They're
No, but they're also. I think it's important to say, like, it's clear they're playing upper crust.
they're not.
Right?
They don't have. They were given the cruise because they're hot and can promote the cruise company by
You have
posting.
actual people who can afford it and have a way of thinking and a way of life that becomes quite clear in the rest of the movie. But they occupy this kind of, you know, there's this form of like mediated wealth, right?
Exactly. Which I think is true for how a lot of these influencer
Yeah,
types
absolutely.
exist. You know, the crew we see at the beginning are like, it's almost like pregame for a football in the locker room. They're like, yeah, 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 yeah. And the big goal is a huge tip at the end of the week. Like
Yeah.
that's what they're all shooting for. Carl gets angry at Yaya because she's like smiling and kind of flirting with one of the crew members. He complains to the boss, Paula, about the fact that one of the crew members was shirtless and he found that really inappropriate. This leads to him a few minutes later seeing that guy being fired and like shipped
Yeah.
off. And he's kind of like, oh, like in a weird way, it's like that should be your comrade, Carl. And you've just like sold him out to
Right.
the
It's the
man.
classic, like you're closer to the guys below deck than your other
But you
passengers.
have to pretend that you aren't because of the
Right.
situation.
My mere presence can get a shirtless crew member fired at the snap of a finger.
Maybe he didn't realize his power. Like he
Yeah,
probably, I mean, he clearly didn't. He also asked when he's complaining to look at the engagement rings because he's
yeah, why
thinking of
not?
proposing to Yaya. Seemed,
What could make this better? What if we get engaged?
I mean, Carl, don't do it. You know, find a
It's
nice
the
girl.
classic way of fixing any troubled relationship.
Yeah, well, either that or we're having a baby, right?
Hmm.
That's the other tried and true method. Uh, there's something great about Harris Dickinson's performance. He's so hot, but he's also vulnerable and like not confident in a way that is unusual for someone who's so handsome, right?
And makes sense because of the performance, right?
I mean, it's a he.
It doesn't feel like a tacked on, like, let's make this guy a little more complicated.
No, no, it seems real. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really well done. He looks at he's looking, the Paula is like showing him one of the rings on her finger, and she's like, "Yes, that'll be that one is a 28,000 euros." And he's like, like, he like, kind of can't even respond. Like,
But like where they deliver the price as though it's like 700,
yeah.
right? There's like
Oh, that
no
one's just 28,000. You know, yeah, it's classic. A couple of the other guests we meet on the boat are Dimitri and his wife Vera, and he also has a girlfriend with him as well. Classic, whatever.
show of
He,
force.
yeah, he is kind of great. Like he's awful, but he's really well acted. We also meet Clementine, and Winston, who are from the UK, right? And a little later on, we learn that they're rich because of their hand grenade business. And they complain after the UN like almost ruined them by outlawing their other earlier business,
Yeah,
landmines.
these are the moments of dialogue and the scenes where the heavy-handedness is very funny,
Yeah, yeah, like
right?
they're funny.
Some of the like social descriptors are a little bit much, but like
Sure.
just going with like hand grenade wealth is a pretty funny choice.
No, yeah, it's great. And we also see this guy, Yarvo, who's a Scandinavian guy, like the director, and he's lonely. His girlfriend ditched him, so he gets Yaya and the Russian girlfriend to pose with him
Yeah.
on the deck, and he's so grateful that they would like agree to be in his selfie that he offers to just buy them both Rolexes. He's like, "Oh, I am very rich. I'm very rich." He does software. He writes the code that makes the video games work. You know, we hear him explaining this to the captain later, who could not seem more bored. Speaking of the captain, who's played by Woody Harrelson, Thomas is for most of the movie drunk in his cabin, and no one can reach him, which brought to mind for me the Exxon Valdez. Remember the Exxon Valdez?
Yeah.
Which that I mean, I was like 8 when that happened, and
Yeah.
yet I remember it so vividly, and like the outrage of like all the animals dying in this massive oil spill in Alaska. And it turned out that the captain was drunk, right? That basically he like steered this gigantic oil tanker into the rocks because he was getting his rocks off
That'll sober
with some booze. What's that?
that'll sober you up real quick.
Yeah, I wonder how that captain's probably not around anymore. He's probably
No, but in the moment, you're not. I think you really do.
The adrenaline like shoots the alcohol out of your body. You're just like, oh. There's this bizarre scene where Vera, the wife of the oligarch, the Russian oligarch, is like demanding that a crew member switch roles with her, almost like in an instance of the carnivalesque, right, where the poorest becomes the richest the poorest. Like, yeah, and it's really odd.
It's all these different sort of quick hitting
vignettes of
wealth and power,
of class dystopian class dynamics. I think the actress in that scene is really good playing the crew member because she's so conflicted. Her first obligation is to say yes to whatever the passengers demand, and yet this is a violation of protocol in every way. Like, later she gets everyone to go swimming. They have to inflate the water slide.
Have you ever seen Below Deck?
The
reality show?
I haven't been a big reality guy since
It's funny because it's like, this is obviously very on the nose, the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, it really is not too far away from like what these people deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing, the closeness you have with someone in that scenario who's also an employee.
That's right.
Right? Yeah, I think this movie is like kind of beating you over the head with it, but it does speak to something that's true. Mm-hmm. So there's a storm on the horizon, but the captain demands to have his dinner. The captain's dinner, where everyone, gets to dine with the captain. This is sort of the high point of the cruise for some, I guess. The captain is a mess. We see him like, he starts to wander out of his cabin like in a bathrobe. The first mate is like, no, let's put your uniform on before we go wandering about, right? The dinner scene is very funny. I mean, the storm. What's that?
Probably the funniest part of the movie.
Oh, I would say so. The storm is ratcheting up. This woman keeps complaining about the fact that the sails are dirty, but there are no sails on the boat. It's very like it's unclear what she's even talking about. And he's like, "Oh, don't worry. Well, there are no sails. This is a powered boat. Like, what are you talking about?" But we'll clean them,
Yeah, I mean, with that and with the like early reactions to the worsening conditions, right? It's just a classic like people of a certain ilk and their utter denial and inability to grasp reality, and instead sort of like craft their own narrative about what is going on. And this is obviously something we see, both from events this week all the way through to the various characters that we have covered time and again on the podcast, right?
Yeah, and I think this is something we see with a lot of rich commentators as well. People who are so comfortable and ensconced in their position of commentary that they actually have no idea like what is going on in the real world. And these are the people
not even of massive success. I mean, people on like CNN who are making
those are like massively successful by the standards of most
but you know what I mean? Like, we're not talking about like media empire people. Like,
no. I'm talking about like a columnist at the New York Times.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like, or just any successful podcaster. Right,
like a David Brooks figure.
Absolutely. Brooks is a good example, but on the right or on the left. Like, all
Brooks would have excelled on this cruise.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he would have been the toast of the... So many anecdotes.
Although you think Harrelson may have actually killed David Brooks in this movie.
That's possible. I'm sure Brooks is a delightful guest at dinner, though, even though he did see me and think I was a murderer that one time on the train from New Haven to New York. Which I think I brought up before, but here it is again.
Yeah.
I was not a murderer. I was just going to my psychiatrist's office in Manhattan, all right? Anyway, never mind. So the storm gets really bad and people start vomiting like profusely and
while dinner is carrying on, right?
Right. And it's like unclear whether it's seasickness or if the food is bad. Like, there's the genesis of this, a kind of maelstrom overcomes the whole ship where the toilets overflow. So there's just shit water sloshing through the halls. There's one guy seems to be having a stroke. Eventually they're trying to like do something
Yeah,
with
it's like it's almost like a sequence of the movie where you could see its presence in like a pitch deck to investors,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Where they're describing it and showing the images of like cruises that really went wrong, and then they just like put it into this like 3 minute run of just like the chaos.
I love the Russian wife, Vera, she pukes, and then she, instead of having water, she demands more champagne.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, well, it's carbonated. That seems bad. And then she takes it and just spews it out 3 seconds later. It's like
No, it's awesome.
a good illustration of how detached from reality these people are. Eventually, they're trying to like fix something with the fuse box and manage to short it out completely so the power goes off. All the while, the Russian oligarch and the captain, Woody Harrelson, are having an argument about capitalism versus communism. That it starts out by them quoting famous phrases from each other's political leaders, literary figures, and it goes on till eventually they're just like on the intercom doing this to everyone.
Yep.
And as you said, Harrelson, it's revealed, is not a communist, but a Marxist.
Yes.
He's like reading passages from Noam Chomsky. Like, he's like, I'm a bad socialist. Like, here I am on this $250 million boat
He's
or
like
whatever.
playing out his inner conflict over the intercom.
It's quite strange. In the morning after the chaos, a grenade falls onto the deck from some pirates, and Winston and Clementine are like, "Oh, do you think it's one of ours?" And then they blow up. The ship is sunk,
Right.
and
Which is a good a very direct method of being like, what happens when the decline of the natural and social and economic ecosystems devolve, and then you're faced with the violent reaction to it. Then you're faced with something even more immediate, right?
yeah, exactly. So the boat sinks. Most people are dead. Like, I think this is like 7 or 8 people survive. Foremost of which, thank goodness, are our beloved main characters, Yaya and Carl. They make it to the beach. The rich Scandinavian guy, Yarvo, makes it. Dmitri, the oligarch, makes it. Neither of his female companions do.
No.
And we later see his wife's body wash up, and he's like holding her, and it seems very loving, but then he's also just trying to get her diamond necklace off and trying to remove her rings and stuff. It's like, again, very funny, but again, like a little bit on the heavy-handed side, right? But I like it. There's also a woman who's had a stroke, who's wheelchair bound, who can only say "in dem Vulcan," which is like in the clouds. Like, she's in the clouds, which I thought of Aristophanes' clouds, like being in the clouds, an accusation leveled against philosophers, right? Like, oh, his head's in the clouds. It's sort of impractical. She survives somehow. It's like not clear how. Her partner, who was caring for her, does not. So she's just kind of there, existing along with a couple other people, including Paula, the sort of head of the crew, right? And then after sort of a night of chaos where they don't have any food, there's like some kind of animal is bothering them on the beach. I think it turns out to be a donkey later. A really fancy lifeboat washes up, and one of the wait staff, Abigail, is on board. And she has water, she has pretzel sticks, she has some other snacks. And I think we saw her in one scene earlier when she was trying to clean Carl and Yaya's room. I don't know if that's her or if it's another one of the staff. We've seen it's like there's the rich people, then there's like the captain and his staff, and then there's the like servers who serve dinner, and then there's like the cleaning staff. So there's like hierarchies of workers on this. And she's from the lowest. She's in fact the toilet like master. She's in charge of like cleaning the toilets and taking care of the bilge pump or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, very quickly it becomes clear that only Abigail has any real world survival skills of any sort. I think she's Filipina. The actress is Filipina. And she goes and she catches octopuses. And Paula's kind of like acting like the order of the ship is still extant and
right.
enforced.
The world still exists, sort of, right?
Exactly. And Abigail very quickly disabuses of this by being like, one for you, one for me. She's like cutting up the octopus that she's cooked and prepared for everyone. She hoards half of it. And then she starts, who's in charge? You're the captain. So she gives people food based on their assent to her assent, essentially. Right? She is Stalin, essentially. Right? Like,
yeah. Starts to hoard everything.
Yeah. And
including Carl.
Carl becomes the object of her affection. He's punished and denied food because he let the fire go out and ate some illicit pretzel sticks, along with one of the other workers from the engine room who's there.
But she has a proposal.
Carl, you come stay the night. You didn't eat anything, so you stay the night in the lifeboat with me. Right. At which point it's clear she's giving Carl pretzel sticks in exchange for sex. And Yaya...
Not the worst deal I've ever heard, to be honest.
No, and Carl is like so funny because after 2 nights of this, he's like got his hand on her back and like he's clearly abandoned Yaya entirely for like
or is suffering from some sort of like
Stockholm syndrome or something, right? Yeah. And Yaya's like, "What are you doing? Like your hand's on. Like what are you doing with your hand?" He's like, "What? Oh, nothing." Yarmo kills a donkey for them to eat, which is horrifying, right? It's like, first of all, I don't want to eat donkey. Second of all, like the screams of the donkey, brutal.
Yeah, and they're descending, right? They start doing paintings of the donkey.
Yeah, like, it's becoming a kind of Lord of the Flies scenario.
And eventually Carl and Abigail are like out, right?
What do you mean?
Like they're public facing.
Oh yeah, well that's what I mean. Like he's like, wouldn't it make it easier if we just were dating?
Mm-hmm.
And Yaya eventually is like, I'm going to go explore the island because we don't know what's here. It's a very beautiful island. Abigail's like, don't go alone. I'll go with you. I'll protect you. Clearly, we see that Abigail wants this reality to continue, right? She wants their life on as it exists now, where she has all the power to continue. The idea of being rescued is actually suboptimal for Abigail's aims. So eventually, while they're out and everyone else away, a beach vendor who's got like fake Rolexes comes and is like trying to sell them to the woman who had a stroke, who's unable to communicate anything about their situation to this guy. And she's like holding his hand too long. He's like, get away. He ends up just like running off, which implies to us immediately, this is a resort island. Like this is a vacation spot. How no one has discovered them after a few days, unclear.
Right, they just have a pocket that has presented as isolated and deserted.
Yeah, but also no one from the ship company is like, hey, we haven't been able to reach the, there's no like, anyway. Eventually, they journey through the woods, and Yaya is telling Abigail how much she admires her. She's so impressive. She's tamed all the alpha males. And Abigail's kind of loving this, but is also sort of wary. Like, eventually they just find an elevator cut into a rock face, which is hilarious because what? And she's like, it's a resort. And Abigail's like, let's celebrate a moment. Let's sit and think and be thankful before we leave.
Like re-engage with the world.
Yeah, I have to take a piss. So she goes off in the woods and Yaya's like sitting with her back to her. And Abigail returns with a rock, just ready to stash her brains out to keep the fantasy going. And she's like, I want to help you. I can help you when we get back to civilization. You could be my assistant.
Yeah, come work for me, essentially, right?
Right. And then
I'll read your script,
Yeah. I can maybe pass it along to my agent. Who knows?
Yeah,
Who knows? Sure. No promises, but and
no one's really buying anything right now, but people they'll take a look.
We'll put your name on a list of other potential future writers' room candidates for when we are producing something in the future. Right. Yeah. None of us have experienced anything like this in our careers, obviously. We don't know what happens. We don't see her crush Yaya. But the next scene is just a cut to Carl, who's running violently through the woods, as if pursued by something. We don't know what. Mm-hmm. And then the movie just ends. So I guess my question to you would be like, what did you take this final sequence
I mean, I think I kind of took it the way I took the whole movie, which is that like I think that whether it's on purpose, it's like it's very it feels unclear, although I have an inclination about whether this movie, which presents itself as like a class battle, right? Okay. Is this meant to evoke feelings and awareness of class in the viewer? Or is the very directness followed by the like sort of over the top and ambiguous ending, right?
Yeah.
Like not an interesting enough story to leave me with like any type of will they, won't they, what happened, you know? That like is the director actually speaking to like the hopelessness of changing any of this, right?
Yes.
That like Abigail will become power hungry even if she is a good, hardworking, lower class person. The second it's made available, this will not create some sort of class consciousness that will then lead to some sort of just society, but rather we're at the point.
Well, it's just that's why I said Stalin, right? It'll just immediately lead to a dictatorship of the dictatorship of the proletariat.
And sort of regardless of the world of the movie, why don't you just watch this exaggerated version of our lives and the hopelessness of it all? Kind of is the way I came up.
Right. Like, is it just completely cynical? In other words, doesn't have any like hope for progressive change over time.
Yep.
That said, my interpretation was Abigail did kill Yaya and then came back. Carl is running from her, having realized that she was killed, right?
Sure. I think that's the most likely thing.
Although I don't understand who else he'd be running from, right?
I haven't figured out a reason as to why she doesn't kill her.
Yeah. I mean, after her, it seems for a second she pauses because she's like, I can help you. And then the offer of help is like, you can be my assistant.
Yeah. And
at which point she's just like, right? Like that.
I offer you a life of a different form of certitude.
Yeah. And we've already seen that, like, from what we've seen of Yaya's life, I mean, she can't pay her credit card bills on time. She's over the limit. She doesn't, like, does she make any real money, or is it all just paid in perks?
So Yaya ultimately is like, no, you're my assistant, as you've been on our trek through the woods. And now the threat of becoming your assistant by re-engaging with the world might actually lead me to just fucking kill you right here.
That's right. I think that's the most likely interpretation. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, I like the movie well enough. It's quite long. It's over 2.5 hours long. I don't know what I would.
Perfectly fine. No reason to ever revisit it again is sort of where I'm at now that I've definitely seen it twice.
Yeah. I'm not running to do a rewatch. I will say that.
No, but force majeure we'll get to that somewhat soon, but not next. Why don't you remind everybody what we're doing next?
Well, since we decided mid-episode that we are doing Alien. We did Ridley Scott's other so-called good movie, Blade Runner, and hated it. But I think this one is actually good. The original film, Sigourney Weaver.
I'd have to work overtime to come away hating Alien. So
yeah. And I think, it's back in the news because of this Alien Earth TV show. Have you been watching that?
Of course not. No.
I've been watching it. It's all right. It's not great, but it's interesting. It's Noah Hawley, the guy who did Fargo, the show, and Legion, the show, both of which I thought were great. Yeah. So I have high hopes. I think the last episodes, I think there's 2 more episodes. Anyway, but eventually we can get into Prometheus, we can get into Alien Covenant, do all the aliens if we have to. I love these movies. I'm a certified alien head, so I think it'll be fun to finally talk about them.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, well, until then, you can follow us on the podcatcher of your choice. And if
whichever podcatcher you choose.
Yeah, the choosing of the podcatcher, that's up to you. But following us, that's what you must do. Follow us on the podcatcher, and you can follow us on Instagram at the end of the world WMS. If you like us, you can leave us a rating and or review on the podcatcher of your choice. And yeah, so Alien next time. This has been great. We'll see you soon. And until then, this has been the end of the world with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stu, and we'll talk to you real soon. I said soon twice. What's wrong with me? It's like 85,
we will talk to you real soon.
85 episodes, and we'll talk to you real soon.